I've not yet admitted everyone. Sharon is trying to
Okay.
quickly check her video, see if she can share,
All
but if
right.
she can't, absolutely no problem. Sharon, can we give you
Wait
like
for some
minutes?
a
Yeah.
minute or two. Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay, so I think that she might be having some issues. So okay, let me go back to sharing the slide so that at least
From other parts of the world and the continent. This is me officially saying greetings, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on yet another episode of our webinar series here at Green Growth Africa. So I'm just going to go over what we do at Green Growth
Recording in
Africa, or what
progress.
Green Growth Africa is all about. So for those of us who do not know, Green Growth Africa is a United Nations Education Program accredited NGO, and we are basically committed to environmental justice and sector decarbonization and nature-based solutions that drive socioeconomic um, development and also help to facilitate just and green transitions in Africa. Now, I want to believe that there are some people that are here who attended the last webinar that we organized, where we took a lesson on how to write proper grants and proposal writing and all of those stuff. So the essence of these webinars that we organize is basically to see how we can empower African civil society organizations, youth, and even professionals in this sustainability ecosystem with the practical skills and knowledge that would help them to be able to, advance sustainable development across the continent. So, but today's edition of our webinar is actually very, very, very special because it is gender oriented, right? Now, we cannot talk about sustainable development without identifying the fact that women play a very major role in some sectors in the ecosystem. We have areas like sustainable climate, we have agriculture, and we know for a fact that there are some systematic barriers that prevent women from fully participating in the ecosystem. So today we are going to be listening to seasoned speakers in the industry, and we are going to be learning some strategies to design gender responsive programs. They're also going to be looking at women's leadership in the ecosystem, and then also we're going to be gaining insights on how to um, go forth with partnerships, like get partnerships for funding and learn other very vital information as regards collaboration. So today we have three seasoned speakers. Our very first speaker is Natania Botha. We're also going to be hearing from Sharon Mutende, and we're also going to be hearing from Funmilayo Oyekanmi. Please pardon me if I did not pronounce your name. So we're going to be and just to bring our minds back to the theme or the topic for this webinar, it is Africa's development agenda needs women. So we're looking at investing in women to accelerate green growth. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through the citation of our very first speaker, Natania Botha. Now, Natania Botha is a South African African environmental and social change activist. She's a mosaic artist and a Master's International Business graduate. Her work blends creative expression with circular economic practices. She was recognized as one of M&G's 200 Young South Africans in 2021 and a top 12 leading woman in CSI. She leads inclusive initiatives such as mosaic workshops for individuals with Down syndrome and eco-conscious upcycling projects. She's also a YALI alumni, SDG leader, and content and partnerships coordinator. Natania has partnered with organizations like the United Nations to deliver impactful community-driven events promoting empowerment and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from South Africa, we have Miss Natania Botha. It's a pleasure to have you. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to switch on my video for a few seconds just so that everyone can see I'm not an AI robot sitting on the other side. Good day, everyone. I'm going to share my presentation, so just give me a few seconds just to find myself. But thank you very much for today's opportunity. I'm very excited to share with everyone tricks of the trade that I've learned over the past, I would say, eight years, working with various non-governmental organizations as well as civil society organizations. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Thank you. So I just want to do a quick introduction, but I know that there was an introduction on me. But yeah, I'm an artist and environmental activist by profession. And the past 8 years, I've worked the field for NGOs and civil society in partnership building and fundraising. So I'm going to just dig into my presentation because there's quite a bit that I would like to cover for today. So first of all, why women? And also why now all of a sudden invest in women? For me, traveling, I've traveled a lot of parts in Africa. I've traveled across South Africa. And what I've seen is that women are at the front line of climate change, climate adaptation, climate mitigation. They're the ones who install small-scale farming, eco-enterprises. They are in the forefront of social entrepreneurship because that's just the nature of women. Women are nurturers. Women are people who goes and put systems in place, not just inside their homes, but they are genuinely in the forefront of absolutely everything. Especially if we look at rural communities where women would go and walk to fetch water, they would fetch wood to cook, and all of that adds up to frontline leadership that I feel women are leading grassroots climate actions through, like I said, farming, recycling, local energy solutions. And I think that most indigenous knowledge is situated within women, and they can play an absolute critical part in bringing all of that knowledge and bringing all of that drive that they have within their households to the forefront in the fight against climate change and climate mitigation adaptation. Then obviously it has always been the case, unequal access to resources. Okay, it's not something that happened yesterday. This is something that we've been dealing with for a very long time as women. So despite our contributions, we do face systemic barriers to funding, land rights, and decision-making power. This limits the scale of the impact that women can have with their green innovations. Then there's obviously the element of untapped potential for growth. Investing in women unlock inclusive, community-driven green growth, where women thrive, entire ecosystems for social and environmental benefits. So this is just a short overview of why I say we should invest in women. So what is the role of the private sector? I've highlighted 3 key elements of the role of what the private sector can play in a organization like a civil society organization. First and foremost, without money, we can't do anything. I've always said, conservation without funding is only conversation. Okay, so you need capital. And I think that is where private sector plays the biggest part in sourcing funding for your movement or for your program. And then obviously there's the element of innovation and scalability, and then shared value. So this is the role of the private sector. I'm going to move on to the role of policymakers, because all of this is going to fit in at the end with the message that I want to leave with you guys for today. So the role of policymakers in funding civil society organizations, first and foremost, it's advocacy. The civil society organizations must share data and stories from the field to inform better policy formation. Then there's the second element that I would genuinely like to encourage everyone: co-designing programs with policymakers. So when you do design a program, make always sure that you have someone from a policy background who can co-design this program with you and not endorse your program like afterwards. It's great to create together and to co-create, because then you can see the coin from both sides, if I can put it like that. And then the accountability structures that we need frameworks to ensure that women benefit from green investment strategies. So that is the role of the policymakers. But how can civil society organizations position themselves for partnership? Once again, I'm going to highlight 3 major aspects. The first one is demonstrate impact with data and stories. Okay? Blend the emotional narrative with clear metrics. Funders really want to see the impact, the recipient. How did it change the life of the recipient on the other end? And how can you narrate this impactful story so that it's showcased into like proper impact with data? Then, secondly, very important, map your stakeholders. Know who in your community or government has power, resources, and influence, and build from shared interest. This is very important. You need to know who is in your immediate environment, who can assist you, and who is maybe on the borderline of your environment, who also has shared interest in what you do for your organization. Then lastly, package your programs for investment. Frame your initiatives. It's not just as a charity, but as a social impact. And absolutely people who has the funding to invest in programs, they genuinely like the fact if you can package your programs in a video, in a brochure, in a case study, something that you can show to future funders about what did you do in the past, what was the impact of it, and obviously the aesthetic of this needs to be immaculate. So you do need to invest a little bit in your design work. I know you can always go onto Canva, which is a design platform. There's free templates that you can use, but then there's also the premium templates that you can buy into. But there is platforms available for you to work on the aesthetic of your program that you want to showcase. So I'm going to give a few practical steps to building sustainable partnerships. And usually I refer to this as whenever I go and look for a partner, I think of it as a wedding, as I'm going to look for my partner in life, you know. When you look for someone to date you, what is the first thing that is coming up? It's chemistry between two people. Now, searching for a partnership for your organization, it's the same thing. People are going to blend with you. They're going to fit in with you. You're going to see this person, we've got a chemistry going here. So this is what I call start with shared vision, because when you meet someone, you guys have something in common, and that is what makes you guys click. Okay, so look for the shared vision in everything. It's not just a matter of let's partner with everyone. It's not going to be effective. Look for shared vision. What is it that your organization shares in the same interest as the organization that you're reaching out to? Secondly, very important, pilot first, okay? And you don't always have to wait for money, for funding to come in. You can definitely start a little pilot with one person or two people, just to show that you have tried and tested this on a small scale. And this will help you to unlock funding. I promise you. Then engage women from the start. Don't just design a program for funding and say, well, this is going to benefit women. Design it with women, for women, because you should not assume things in life. Okay. The one time I went out to a event, and like we came up with all of these beautiful things for the community. But when we started to engage the community, they were like, no, we don't want this. This is not what we want. So it doesn't help you go and do all of this work, and it's not genuinely what the community needs. Then lastly, develop a business case. And this is very important because, you know, you can go into a conversation and you can talk, but if you have nothing to show where the person can refer back to an email or on paper, then it's difficult for any decision maker to make a choice, especially if we work with millions of dollars of program funding. Okay, so you always need to have that business case for your program. How it reduced carbon emissions, what was the impact of it? Was there any job creation? Was there skill transfer that took place? Like I said, start with a small pilot, if it's one or two people, but it's always good to showcase that you are not just waiting for something to come in, but you are proactive in trying to give the program that you're trying to implement agency, if I can put it like that. So for me, Africa has no shortage of talent or tenacity, but without financing, women's climate solutions remain untapped. And that is a fact of the day. All African women are like, they have the energy, they are prepared to work, they're prepared to innovate, but like I said, no money, nothing can happen. But you're gonna have to find innovative ways to ensure that you get a little pilot going, or just to ensure that something can come in from your idea that you have. So I want you to remember that partnerships are not charity, okay? They are strategy. They are how we co-author a future where green growth is possible, innovation is possible, and intergenerational things can unlock. That is what partnerships is for me. And I take it, I'm very passionate about setting up partners and agreements and negotiations. Like I said, I usually see this as a marriage. Okay, it's something that I take very serious. So I want us to look at a few funding platforms that is available for women-led initiatives. We can work through the list. I see that the Global Environmental Facility, the Jeff Small Grants Program, they usually offer up to $50,000 for community-based environmental projects. We have UN Women and UNDP programs, and I've worked on several UN Women and UNDP programs. So you will have to check from your country office what is available as funding for your specific country from the UN, but there's also global grants available. So you have to take it like a bull. When he goes in, he has the one horn and the other horn. So you have to do it from both ways, like sort of like a bull attack, you know, so that you don't lose out on local funding and international funding. There's the local banks that you can reach out to. They all should have CSI and ESG programs in place. For instance, in South Africa, we have I'm going to call it a law where your gross profit, 1% of it, has to go towards CSI initiatives, especially in South Africa, where we have so much environmental, social, and economic challenges to deal with. If it wasn't for our private sector, who commits that 1% of their profits towards CSI, our social initiatives for South Africa would look a lot different. And I think that is what sort of like gives us the advantage as a developed country, is the private sector who genuinely comes to the party with their 1%. Yes, they can give more, they should give more, they should not be limited to 1%, but you can definitely lobby in your country, the private sector, as well as other funding that is available. There's the Green Climate Fund that has programs that you can apply for. And then obviously the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative. Just as an overview, this list is not exhausted, okay? You must go onto the internet every day to see what is available, where can I submit a proposal. But lastly, I don't want us to forget about the diplomatic channels that we can follow for support, okay? So every single country has embassies that they host in their country, and these embassies has diplomatic missions. So once again, an example from South Africa, embassies here every 3 months, they have a new budget available to invest in programs. For instance, whether it's something that is women-led or water or waste or sustainable energy, you name it, okay? So you will have to develop a relationship with your local embassies, the ambassador, the higher commissioner, to see what is available. And if there's nothing available right now, don't give up, okay? Because that's not how a marriage works. You have to hold it out, always reach out to them again if you have something else in the pipeline. But communication is very, very, very important. How you follow up every single time. You don't know. You can follow up 6 times. They might only get back to you then. But do not give up, okay? Then there's also the European Union delegation that you can reach out to. They also work relentlessly in all African countries with their mandate and agency. So you will just have to really, I would say, throw yourself out there, knock on doors, and leave no stone unturned. But very important, don't just reach out to everyone. It has to be a shared vision. Does this embassy have the shared vision in the program that you have? Because the worst thing that could happen is to get funding in, but the organization shares no interest or value in what you do. So for instance, let's take a example. If you maybe get funding from a company that manufactures guns and bombs and ammunition, I won't say that they surely have the same shared vision in women empowerment that you do. So they might have the money, but you do not want that money, if I can put it that way. So really map out your stakeholders, map out who is in your area, who can you take for a coffee? Can you host a women's morning, networking morning, to see who works in the European delegation office that is passionate about women programs? Who works at the Canadian Higher Commissioner to assist with funding and to see how you can apply? And remember, there's so many processes involved that you're going to have to be you're going to have to sort of like pace yourself and don't give up when something doesn't come in straight away. And I think that is with how I'm going to end my presentation today. I hope that I have covered some key aspects about partnerships. I want to share a short story before I end. A few years ago, I was writing a proposal for one of our major banks, and the proposal was for a green entrepreneurship development across South Africa in our rural communities and our township areas. And I was sitting in a back room and I didn't even have a table to write this proposal on. Okay. In the end, the proposal came down to 20 million rand and it was approved. And when it became that it was approved, I've learned something very sentimental, that it's really not what you have, but it is what you have inside of you that determines where you're going. Okay. So if you have nothing right now, don't let that get you under. That should be your fuel. Okay. But you cannot stop every single day. You have to submit a proposal somewhere, somehow. You have to genuinely, it's not a thing of let's quickly take care of it. You have to be very dedicated towards the cause to find the right partners in the process. And once you have the right partners on board, you absolutely have to make sure that you service those partners and give them what they want from the program, because there's nothing, absolutely nothing as powerful as the word of mouth. When I go into a meeting around the negotiation table, I absolutely make always sure that there's personal aspects that I get to know about some of my funders. For instance, when is the person that I'm dealing with, when is their birthday? Can I call them then? Can I send them a message for Easter? Can I send them a Merry Christmas message? And that is how you build these relationships over many, many, many years. And I wish everyone all the best with searching for the shared vision in their partnership building. And I'm sure that my presentation will be shared with everyone after today's engagement. Thank you so much for the platform for today.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Natania. That was a very, very, very partnership with the private sector and policymakers for financing women-focused interventions. And I like the fact that you were able to tailor bodies or organizations that we can actually look out for to build in these partnerships. I want to believe everybody very, very, very important information. Thank you so much for the detail. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So we are going to be having introduce what the session is all about. I just want to say that there will definitely be an opportunity for question and answers. So if you have questions, you can just write down and then ask our questions and then have our facilitators answer. So right now we are going to be watching a very short video. It is ACT project. So over to Miss Precious.
All right, thank you so much, Nejo, and thank you so much, Natania, for that very insightful session. I personally gained a lot, particularly with the fact that you have, practical stories to share about, maintaining communications with people that matter, ensuring that women are, included in the whole decision making, ensuring that you're not just designing projects that you feel women will be impacted by, but ensuring that you actually get women and involve women in designing women-focused programs. And I also personally appreciated the point around around communicating. Basically, I really picked that point of communicating, ensuring that even if they do not, even if you are reaching out to funders or reaching out to government embassies and they do not respond to you as you would like to keep to keep communicating and keep showing up, and also to look at your project as try to make a business case. Let me use that, the word you use, to make a business case out of your impact project. So you're not just going to be looking at, okay, we are doing something that is great, but also try to figure out, oh, how can we position this program that we are referring to in a way that the funders from whatever backgrounds they are coming from will be interested in, and also the way to position it in a way that you can also get stakeholders across board interested in. And of course, I'm certain that many other persons speak different insights, and it was really it was very short but also very, very impactful. So thank you so much, Natania, and thank you so much to everyone that has joined in so far. My colleague Nejo, Ayomdi Nejo, she is currently moderating the program, and I'm Precious Nozie. And I'll quickly, in the next few minutes, I'll be sharing a video with you. And please let me know if you can hear the audio on the video once I start it. So.
From the air we breathe to the food on our plates, nature's hidden work keeps...
Audio?
Yes, I can hear from my end.
All right. Okay.
Yes, I can also hear from my end.
Okay, so let me go ahead then.
I can hear, but the screen is not clear to watch.
Okay, is it clear now?
Yes, it's better now.
So we can start then. Thank you.
The food on our plates, nature's hidden work keeps you... Climate stability and food production sustain our quality of life, livelihoods, health, peace, and foster socioeconomic development. Sadly, criminal activities like illegal mining, deforestation,
Please, the video is not visible.
Stripping the environment of its ability to... From the air we breathe to the food on our plates, nature's hidden work keeps you and I alive and flourishing. The essential services nature offers us, fresh water, fertile soil, climate stability, and food production sustain our quality of life, livelihoods, health, peace, and foster socioeconomic development. Sadly, criminal activities like illegal mining, deforestation, and wildlife trafficking, among others, are stripping the environment of its ability to deliver these essential ecosystem services, putting both the planet and human lives in grave danger. In Africa, environmental violations are rampant in rural, remote communities, areas largely beyond the reach of government, media, and conventional security systems. Those who dare to report these crimes risk severe threats, victimization, and even their lives, leaving many to suffer in silence. The result? Lives, livelihoods, and human rights are eroded, ecosystems are degraded, and communities become increasingly vulnerable to climate shocks. To combat environmental crimes and empower citizens to exercise their rights to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, Green Growth Africa launches Eco Justice Africa. This citizen-driven, tech-enabled initiative allows you to document and report environmental crimes in your community in real time through the Green Growth Watch mobile app. From illegal logging to hazardous waste dumping, your phone becomes a tool for justice. Simply snap a photo or video, choose a crime category, add details, and submit your report. Once submitted, your reports are sent to the Eco Justice Situation Room, where experts verify each case using advanced technology and stakeholder collaboration. Verified cases are then escalated for advocacy through direct stakeholder engagement, social media campaigns, and green growth television, where they feature in news reports, debates, and dialogues, driving both policy reforms, legislative and judicial actions. Throughout the entire process, citizen reporters can choose to be anonymous, protecting them from risks, threats, or victimization. To facilitate effective grassroots mobilization and engagement, environmental activists who are already working with local communities will be recruited through an Eco Justice Fellowship initiative. The Eco Fellows will be trained and empowered to provide grassroots coordination, training for citizens, and verification of citizen reports. Imagine that with phone, you can be a change maker without the exposing yourself to risk, threat, or victimization. Eco Justice Africa also takes away huge time and financial investment required to visit government office to make report, while enabling you to speak and be heard by government and other stakeholders. Eco Justice Africa is raising citizens as a new generation of environmental activists and redefining environmental advocacy to achieve an environmentally just Africa, where citizens are aware and able to exercise their environmental rights. Together, we can combat environmental crime to build a greener and more just Africa. Join the movement right away by 1. Partnering with us, 2. Downloading the Green Growth Watch app, and 3. Subscribing to our YouTube channel for a sustainable and just Africa. From the air we breathe to the food on our plates, nature's hidden work keeps you and I alive and flourishing. The essential services nature offers us, fresh water, fertile soil, climate stability, and food production, sustain our quality of life, livelihoods, health, peace, and foster socioeconomic development. Sadly, criminal activities like illegal mining, deforestation, and wildlife trafficking, among others, are stripping the environment of its ability to deliver these essential ecosystem services, putting both the planet and human lives in grave danger. In Africa, environmental violations are rampant in rural, remote communities, areas largely beyond the reach of government, media, and conventional security systems. Those who dare to report these crimes risk severe threats, victimization, and even their lives, leaving many to suffer in silence. The result? Lives, livelihoods, and human rights are eroded, ecosystems are degraded, and communities become increasingly vulnerable to climate shocks. To combat environmental crimes and empower citizens to exercise their rights to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, Green Growth Africa launches Eco-Justice Africa. This citizen-driven, tech-enabled initiative allows you to document and report environmental crimes in your community in real time through the Green Growth Watch mobile app. From illegal logging to hazardous waste dumping, your phone becomes a tool for justice. Simply snap a photo or video, choose a crime category, add details, and submit your report. Once submitted, your reports are sent to the Eco-Justice Situation Room, where experts verify each case using advanced technology and stakeholder collaboration. Verified cases are then escalated for advocacy through direct stakeholder engagement, social media campaigns, and green growth television, where they feature in news reports, debates, and dialogues, driving both policy reforms, legislative, and judicial actions. Throughout the entire process, citizen reporters can choose to be anonymous, protecting them from risks, threats, or victimization. To facilitate effective grassroots mobilization and engagement, environmental activists who are already working with local communities will be recruited through an Eco-Justice Fellowship initiative. The Eco-Fellows will be trained and empowered to provide grassroots coordination, training for citizens, and verification of citizen reports. Imagine that with phone, you can be a change maker without the exposing yourself to risk, threat, or victimization. Eco-Justice Africa also takes away huge time and financial investment required to visit government office to make report, while enabling you to speak and be heard by government and other stakeholders. Eco-Justice Africa is raising citizens as a new generation of environmental activists and redefining environmental advocacy to achieve an environmentally just Africa, where citizens are aware and able to exercise their environmental rights. Together, we can combat environmental crime to build a greener and more just Africa. Join the movement right away by 1. Partnering with us, 2. Downloading the Green Growth Watch app, and 3. Subscribing to our YouTube channel for a sustainable and just Africa. Eco-Justice Africa is leading the way. Will you join us?
If you could quickly do before we get to our next session. So I'm going to be sharing the slides now. So minute and share. Okay, so can you see my screen now? Are we back to the slides?
Yes, we can.
All right, so thank you so much. So the video you just watched was about one of our projects at Green Africa, which is called Eco-Justice Africa. And the whole idea of Eco-Justice Africa is to use both citizen-based reporting and media, as well as policy advocacy to combat environmental crimes in Africa. And so one of our major parts of our Eco-Justice Africa initiative is what we call the Green Growth TV and Studio. So for those of us who are already following us, I'm certain that you would have heard us referring to Green Growth TV and Studio a lot of times. But just now, I'll be very grateful if we can quickly scan the QR code on our screens to subscribe to Green Growth TV, because we want to ensure that everybody everywhere can have access to our media platform, which is Green Growth TV, where we get to amplify stories of environmental crimes and violations that occur in different local communities across Africa. So we'd just be very grateful if you could quickly scan the QR code on your screen and subscribe to the YouTube channel. So please, I'll give us 2 minutes. Let's just scan the QR code and subscribe. And also, please also help us to post the link in the chat box so that for those who are unable to scan, they can also access the link. So please help us to post the link for persons who are unable to scan to also subscribe. So we really need this from you. Scan the QR code and subscribe, or click on the link and subscribe to our Green Growth TV and Studios channel on YouTube. And what we'll be getting from there, we'll be getting our underreported stories of environmental crimes in Africa from persons that are on the ground that know what's happening. We also feature documentaries, we feature podcasts with policymakers, with CSO actors like you, with persons from the academia on green growth issues. And of course, we also feature news on general trending social issues, which we also link to green growth issues as well. So please kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel, Green Growth TV and Studios. Either you scan the QR code or you click the link in the chat box. Thank you so much. So if you have done that, please please type subscribe in the chat box, or done. Type done in the chat box. Let me know if you have been able to subscribe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please type done. Please click the link quickly, subscribe, and yes, thank you so much to everyone that is doing that. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for subscribing. Please keep doing that in the next minute, and we'll move over to our next speaker. Yes, thank you so much, everyone that is subscribing. Yes, please keep on clicking the link or scanning the QR code. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, so I think let me have 2 more persons and then we continue. Yes, 1 more person and we continue. Yes, thank you so much. So Nedja, over to you.
Thank you very much, Precious. So I'm sure we'll be able to understand what the Eco Justice program is about. Now we have heard about how to develop or build partnerships with private sector and policymakers for women-focused interventions. Natania has taken us through the process and even introduced us on how to build relationships and some organizations that we can reach out to that will support programs that are women-oriented. Now we are going to be listening to our second speaker in person of Miss Sharon, and she's going to be taking us through the topic designing impact programs for women and other vulnerable group. I think when I was going through the chat box, I saw somebody ask a question somewhat related to that. So I want to believe that you will pay full attention and get every single detail from this particular session. Now, before I invite Sharon over to take her session, I'm just going to quickly read through her bio. Please pardon me if I do not pronounce your name correctly. Sharon Mutende is an environmental policy analyst focused on advancing environmental and gender justice with a strong background in feminist and youth advocacy. She champions inclusive policies that elevate the voices of women and young people. She actively engages in global forums such as the COPs and the COPs and the United Nations Environment Assembly, integrating gender and youth perspectives into international policy. Sharon also works with grassroots communities to simplify policy information, promote environmental education, and support climate resilience among marginalized groups. All the way from Kenya, please let us welcome Ms. Sharon Mutende. You're welcome, Ms. Sharon.
Thank you, Nejo, for the good introduction. I don't know if you can see me. It's approaching night here, and I'm a Black person, so you understand, you are not able to see me clearly. My apologies. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone from where you're joining from. Thank you, Natania, for your comprehensive presentation too. My name is Sharon Mutende, as I had been previously introduced, and I'm an environmental policy analyst with a background in environmental diplomacy, feminist climate justice, and also youth advocacy. And I do policy analysis using a gender lens and children and youth lens to ensure that environmental policies are gender responsive and uphold principles of intergenerational equity. I'm getting a notification from my side that my internet is not so good. So I don't know if my video is still on or it's not on, but I beg to just proceed. It's a real pleasure to be speaking to you all today alongside the two other amazing women from South Africa and Nigeria, respectively. So today's theme, which is Africa's development agenda, needs investing in women to accelerate green growth, really resonates deeply with my work. And I will be sharing reflections on how we can design impactful, inclusive programs for women and other vulnerable groups. And these programs should be rooted in justice and responsive to the urgent call for a just transition in Africa. So my topic touches on various vulnerable groups, so you will hear me mention other groups that aren't just women. Next slide, please. Oh, we are already in the next slide. Yeah, so no, please, just go up. I will be telling you when to go to the next slide. All right, thank you. So this conversation today is very important and very timely because the world is moving towards net zero, and our continent is also looking to at how we can have a just and inclusive transition that leaves no one behind. So I will begin by setting the context, and it is important to ground this conversation in Africa's broader development vision. So Agenda 2063, which is African Union's blueprint for inclusive and sustainable growth, also emphasizes in Aspiration 6 with language on how the continent's development must be people-driven, placing women, youth, children, and marginalized groups at the center of the transformation. And as I will give a few stats related to this, because it's important to ground this conversation also on data. So it's important to note that 60% of Africa's population lives in rural areas where the access to information and also green technologies and basic infrastructure remains very limited. And this is important information and shapes how inclusion must be designed. Not only for, I would say, not only for urban populations, which is usually the norm, but also for other groups. For example, groups like pastoral communities, smallholder farmers, fisher folk, and informal settlements, only to mention a few. And additionally, data gaps are also increasingly becoming a silent crisis for us as Africans. Because many African countries still lack reliable and also disaggregated data to track the impacts of green projects and investments, especially on women, youth, and other marginalized communities. And gender data gaps are also very common, and women are consistently being underrepresented. Which means that women's realities are often excluded from policy-making spaces especially, and also programming. So at the same time, our interventions sometimes become very fragmented, and most people are operating in silos, which now further compounds the issues that we are currently experiencing as a continent. So I will give an example of a few exclusions that are currently ongoing. The first one will be women. Despite women being key players in sectors like agriculture, which is the backbone of the African continent, women still face major barriers like, let's say, limited access to climate finance and underrepresentation, especially in decision-making spaces, and lack of support, even when they come up with green entrepreneurship projects. And when it comes to youth, who currently make up over 60% of Africa's population, our youth are severely underrepresented, especially in green jobs, because of a skills mismatch and limited access to financing, and also a lack of awareness of the opportunities that are present in the green sector. And because I cannot talk about vulnerable groups without also talking about persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and informal workers, and also displaced populations. You find that for these groups, their exclusion tends to be even more pronounced because they are left out of the planning processes, and also they lack access to resources and legal protections. And that is why we need in very intentional and inclusive program design, so that we are able to not reinforce the very inequalities that green growth is meant to resolve. Next slide, please. All right, so now that we have understood the context and the exclusions that are currently at play, I think the main question becomes that why must inclusion take center stage when it comes to Africa's green growth agenda? And first, there is the power of lived experiences, because those who are closest to the crisis, those who experience the crisis firsthand, are also closest to the solutions. And women, particularly in rural and informal sectors, are already driving solutions to the climate crisis. And this can be either through traditional knowledge systems that they are custodians of, and also women mostly are early adopters of green technologies. So to overlook women's leadership is also to weaken the resilience of these communities that we're looking to build resilience. When it comes to youth, we are not just future leaders. We always do that youth are future leaders, but mostly we are the ones who are coming up with current innovations. And sometimes you find that youth are being sidelined due to the rigid systems that undervalue youthful leadership, and also the different conditionalities that limit access to financing. This is especially true for youth groups, because most youth operate in youth groups that are informally, they are not even registered, and they are a large number, and also women groups as well. And I will not even start on how those with financial muscle sometimes hijack youth innovations, for a lack of a better way of putting it, and run to implement the innovations because they have the money to do the work. And then when it comes to people with disabilities, you find that people with disabilities, indigenous people, and also migrants, which they are a group that is often overlooked. Sometimes they are just viewed as beneficiaries, but truly speaking, they hold knowledge, and their lived experiences also offer very important insights for designing inclusive and programs. So their perspectives usually highlight what truly matters in them, because they experience overlapping inequalities and often excluded from conversations. So continuing to exclude them is definitely a missed opportunity. First, I would say because they have collective wisdom gained from their lived experience. And also second, because they're generally resilient based on their experiences also. And I would say there is also, when it comes to inclusivity, there is also a very a deeper layer to which inclusion is also about power dynamics, about who actually defines the problems that marginalized groups have and who controls the resources and how the resources can be accessed. Maybe next slide, please. So I think I would like to talk about some of the common mistakes that we see in program design, especially when working with women and other vulnerable groups now in this context of green growth, because we cannot really provide solutions for problems that we are not even aware of. So the first is tokenistic inclusion. So this is when women or youth or other vulnerable groups are listed as stakeholders in reports or the proposals that people develop, but are not meaningfully involved in shaping the program. So here you will find that inclusion becomes something like a checkbox rather than like a serious commitment to meaningful engagement and co-creation with these groups. Secondly, there's the data problem. So too many programs rely on national averages, I would say, and like top of the surface level indicators that really ignore very crucial dimensions like would say gender, age, disability. And we must remember that data shapes how we see the world and how decisions are made, and it has the power to reveal inequalities, to reveal them or even deepen them. So without disaggregated data, we risk designing for, I would say, a mythological average citizen who doesn't actually really exist. And in doing so, we make those at the most risk to become very invisible. The third will be one-size-fits-all approach. So I will categorically say that Africa is not a country. We are constantly joking about this on social media, but some people actually think we are one country. So what works for example, for young women in Lagos will not automatically apply to indigenous women in northern Kenya, or let's say refugees somewhere, a refugee youth in Chad. So our programs must be locally grounded, and they need to be also culturally sensitive and adaptable. And lastly, I would say perhaps most important in the context of women, we always ignore the care economy. So unpaid care work, which is mostly shouldered by women, is usually the invisible backbone of African society, and I insist, invisible. So if programs don't account for things like, let's say, time poverty, which is a reality, especially for women and most youth, where you find that youth are called for volunteering work. And also if the same programs assume that people have unlimited flexibility or unavailability, especially these people belonging to the vulnerable groups, then you find that the programs will unintentionally exclude the very people that they're supposed to serve. And sometimes these do not come from bad intentions, but from failing to ask the right questions or even listen to the right voices. And that's why I think rethinking design is so important. Next slide, please. All right, so how do we move from exclusion to true inclusion? So to design programs that truly work for women and other vulnerable groups in Africa's green transition, we we must root our efforts, especially in a set of the following core pillars that I will mention. And the first one will be a participatory co-design, which is that inclusion must begin at the design stage. That means we need to engage women, youth, persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and other groups like the migrants, not just as token voices, which brings us back to the tokenism that I was talking about, but as co-creators of the solutions. When people help to define the problem, the solutions become more relevant and also sustainable.
You do call Pastor.
Right. The second one will be a leadership, development, and organization capacity. So inclusion, for this one, inclusion isn't just about inviting people into existing spaces. It's about also building their power and also their readiness for the grassroots groups to lead these spaces. So we must move just beyond inviting people, and instead we should invest in supporting especially women-led groups. I would say also youth groups and also disability-led organizations, just to mention but a few, and with the tools to scale their ideas and interventions and also shape policy. And the other one will be intersectional budgeting and financing access. So for this one, inclusive programs would be backed by inclusive budgets. And this means that setting aside funds for marginalized groups and removing complex application barriers, and also using gender responsive and disability aware financial frameworks. I would say something like the complex application barriers will be like demanding for a proposal for a women's group in rural Tanzania. And one of the key demands will be write the proposal in English, when we know that Swahili is their national language and most people speak Swahili. So such unrealistic barriers actually make these groups unable to access funding. So we must ask questions like, who is receiving the funding? The next one will be localization. So Africa's diversity means that we need very localized responses because for pastoral communities, their needs different.
Okay.
Oh, someone is speaking. So for pastoral communities, their needs might be different compared to informal settlements or even rural women farmers. So I think these interventions must reflect the cultural and also geographical and socioeconomic realities, and not just based on donor logic. And the other one will be having a multi-sectoral and also system-based thinking, because the transition cannot just sit in a silo. Yeah, it must speak to various sectors. There has to be intersectionality. So education, healthcare, migration, finance, and I think just to name but a few. And inclusion here will look like collaboration across different ministries, sectors, and also different CSOs. And also when it comes to data, we all know that what gets measured gets funded. So we need disaggregated data and community-defined success metrics for these programs, and community-led also tracking tools. So the evaluations must reflect the lived realities and not just have donor KPIs. And finally, pillar number 7 will be the alignment with broader frameworks, which include national and also regional development plans and also global mechanisms. So this enhances the credibility and also funding access and policy impact. Next slide, please. All right, so at the heart of inclusive program design, I think we refer to as the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion, GESI, which actually recognizes the multiple overlapping systems of exclusion that affect people differently. And so the main question that this answers is who is being left behind and why, and how can we bring them to the center of the climate and development planning. So on this slide, I have highlighted 5 green growth themes and how we can approach each one of them through a vulnerability and also inclusion lens. When we begin with the green jobs, I think this sector holds a very huge potential, but only if we bridge the access gap, which right now is very pronounced. So we need targeted investments, especially in green skilling and apprenticeship, and also entrepreneurial support for young people, women, and also persons with disabilities. And this can take the form of curricular reforms, mentorship also programs, and also technology access, which these are things that are very fundamental, especially to address the access gap. When it comes to just transition, the transition must be people-centered and not just focused on emission reduction. So you will find that especially women in waste management, agriculture, or even mining, we need social protection systems for them, and also decent work conditions and pay, especially pay and formal recognition. When it comes to the care economy, which is often invisible, especially in green transition, women, especially from rural and also low-income areas, carry the bulk of unpaid care work. And from cooking, also fetching water, taking care of households, to caring of children and also the elderly in the communities. And inclusion here would look like compensating care work and also recognizing care as part of the green economy. A very crucial conversation right now in Africa, carbon markets, and programs under carbon markets must ensure there is transparent benefit sharing mechanisms, especially with indigenous peoples and also local communities whose now lands are being used for carbon offsetting. And inclusion here would mean things like having legal protection and also both community and individual ownership models that will eliminate middlemen who prevent, and in this case, preventing exploitation of in the name of climate finance. And lastly, I would say, talk about migration. So migration and displacement, both of which are rising due to climate change related impacts. So inclusive programs should ensure that there is safe housing and access to basic services and support for livelihood recovery and integration into the host communities for these migrants. Next slide, please. So this is this next slide is going to talk about economic justice and tax justice. So this is a topic that is very dear to me, and because we can't talk about inclusive green growth without addressing the economic and tax justice, because the way money flows tells us who is valued and who is not. And some of the things, so I will start by saying that many women are all too familiar with the pink tax. And for those who are not aware, this refers to the extra cost women pay for everyday products, which include hygiene items, say baby care, and also general women products. So some go far as something labeled women, you find that it is priced higher than the same product labeled men. So in many African countries, these essential products are still taxed as luxury, and this makes sustainable living less accessible to the very people that they are looking to sustain. And also there's the tax burden on informal workers, and also the unpaid care economy, which, as I had previously mentioned, is very invisible, especially in GDP calculation. So what do we do about this? We need feminist reforms that are removing taxes on essential goods. And also this means taxing polluters progressively, and also redistributing public funds towards social protection, care work, and also gender responsive financing. Next slide, please. So what do we need to build green programs that are truly just and impactful? First, we need a clear theory of change, which defines who benefits, who leads, and how justice is built in. And then secondly, we need an interdisciplinary and multisectoral approach. So we cannot really separate environment from economy, or let's say care from climate. So green programs must speak to the different sectors, as I had previously mentioned, which might include even education, healthcare, and livelihoods, and especially for groups like women in informal settlements, or even youth in different regions. And then third, public participation must be institutionalized and not just invited. So not just inviting people to participate, but making sure that it's meaningful. And finally, programs must be designed with a human rights lens, asking how financing, taxation, also environmental planning uphold the dignity and reduce vulnerabilities. Next slide. So as I approach the end of my presentation, so how do we move from theory to action? I would say as CSOs, we are not just observers. Mainly we are the ones who are implementing. We also influence, and we are also accountability agents, oftenly referred to as watchdogs. And most times we are sitting at the intersection of policy, communities, and also impact. So here are practical actions that CSOs can take to drive gender responsive and also inclusive green programs. And the first one will be to conduct gender and vulnerability audits. So before designing any program, need to ask very important questions like who needs to be centered and whose voices are missing. So these audits will help identify any structural barriers earlier on, and whether, let's say, it's the time poverty that I had talked about, or if it's youth unemployment, or even lack of accessibility for persons with disabilities, these are able to be identified earlier on. The second will be use this disaggregated data. So you can't fix what you can't see. So disaggregated data will uncover the real dynamics of exclusion in this case. So this will make the programming to be even more targeted. And then we are able to develop even more meaningful indicators, and the impact will be more visible in the communities. And then the third one will be build diverse coalitions, because No single organization can do this alone, and there is also power in numbers. So I think partnership with different organizations like feminist organizations, I would say even youth networks, disability rights movements, indigenous groups, these partnerships will help to expand reach, but also bring lived experience to the strategy, which is something very powerful that I assure you that no technical report can substitute. And then the fourth one will be to advocate for accountability in climate finance governance. So ask important questions like where the money is going and who is benefiting. So this will push for transparency and also direct access for grassroots communities, women groups, also youth groups and other vulnerable groups. And engaging in things like, I would say, public budget tracking, that will be also very important, and also policy dialogues at local and also national levels. And lastly, policy advocacy. So one of the most important role of CSOs is policy advocacy to ensure that the lived realities of marginalized communities and also vulnerable groups are reflected in programs. But also, the role of CSOs is to ensure that even these lived realities are reflected in law and also national strategies and even budgeting cycles. And the CSOs are well positioned to translate now community voices into policy demands and push for removal of any regressive taxes, including integration of human rights principles into environmental governance, and also monitor. The watchdog role asks for CSOs to monitor and advocate also for climate finance for vulnerable groups. Next slide, please. So as we come to a close, I want to leave us with a few final reflections. So I would say green growth must be more than just low emissions and high GDP. It must be just, inclusive, and rooted in care. Care in this case means care for the people, for the planet, and for those who have historically been excluded from both the conversation and also the solutions. I would say, and I will end with a provocation that is very close to my heart, a green economy that taxes my pads but not fossil fuel. If that's what we are building, then we haven't really changed anything. So let's rethink our priorities, and we can demand better, and most importantly, we design programs that reflect the future we truly want for Africa. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So thank you so much for your time, and I would love to keep the conversation going. So please feel free to reach out if you're working on similar issues or would like to collaborate. So at this point, I will hand back to our moderator to guide us through the next session. Over to you, Nejo.
For your very, very, very detailed session. I think for me personally, one of the points that really resonated with me was when you were talking about migrants as a marginalized group, because oftentimes people do not exactly pay attention to them, and there are a lot of other details that I've learned that I would love to start sharing, but because time is not on our side, I wouldn't want to go into detail. But yeah, thank you so much. And please, everyone, please do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, Green Growth TV. The link is in the chat. I think Enoch will drop it right now. And then also, if you have questions, just take note of your questions. Just write them down. When we have the Q&A session, we'll take the questions. So we are going to go over to listen to our last speaker for today. She's from Nigeria. Her name is Miss Funmilayo. Oyekanmi. So I'm just going to quickly read through her bio before I invite her over to take over to have a session. So Ms. Funmilayo Oyekanmi is a lawyer in equity, and she's also an award-winning development practitioner with experience in programs management, gender advocacy, and youth engagement. She has worked across 4 African countries to address poverty and inequality, and previously she served as a youth advisor to the EU delegation to Nigeria and ECOWAS. As founder of HSSN Africa, she leads youth-focused initiatives in education, empowerment, and advocacy. Funmilayo has spoken at global events, impacted over 2,000 young people, and built a community of 63,000 plus online. She has been recognized by ISEC, Yali Nigeria, and the Future Forward Female Movement. We're going to be listening to her take a session, and the topic is leading social impact as a woman, strengthening women's decision-making power. Ms. Funmilayo, it's a pleasure to have you here. You are welcome. Over to you for your session.
Thank you so much, Ayamide. And I learned a lot from the previous speaker's session. So I'm glad I joined from the beginning. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you to the first speaker as well. All right, so my session is on leading social impact as a woman, strengthening women's decision-making power. I understand that although I don't know the statistics of women on this call, but it's a conversation that we need to keep having. You know, having worked on gender issues for as long as I have, I constantly see the imbalance and the need to can you see my, yes. Am I visible, audible? Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yes, so as I was saying,
I can't see your slide, ma.
1 minute, I haven't shared yet, just 1 minute.
Okay.
Let me do that first. Can you see now?
Yes, ma.
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so as I was saying, yes, having worked on gender issues for so long, I still see a lot of discrimination happening, high level, grassroots level, and across sectors. And now that we are here to discuss the representation of women in the green sector, it's still necessary to highlight where the gap lies and give recommendations on what you as organizations or advocates or members of organizations, if you're a policymaker or whatever it is, you know, to do to move the needle so that we can take the step further. Of course, we are not where we used to be, but there is still so much work to do. I'm sure that if you've been following conversations on the progress of SDG 5, you can see that we still have so much work to do. Okay, so let's go straight into it, right? I would like to start with what the statistics say, you know, the policies that are available, because as someone with a legal background, I like to understand the policies, the laws available, and the action that is complementing these policies. You know, it's important to just juxtapose, because policies act as a mandate, and they give you they enable you to take action and to ensure accountability. So these policies are very, very important. And as we go on, you would see the reason why it's very important for you as actors in this space to keep yourselves abreast of policies. So mind the presentation mode. I'm using a Word document, but I believe we're going to share this after this session, right? I mean, it's available if you want to go through it later. But yes, what the statistics are saying, on the regional level, we have so many organizations, agencies, private institutions, and even civil society NGOs that are working in the space of climate action, the green sector, and environmental justice. And just to name a few, especially those that are particular on gender responsive policies, gender inclusive planning. Now we have the UNFCCC, they have the Gender Action Plan and the Lima Work Program, and these help to ensure or promote and encourage state action in fostering women's participation and gender responsive climate policies. So you might have heard of the word gender responsive or not, but we are moving from the point of gender, because gender and climate action is not gender neutral, right? We are moving from the point of just creating policies that are gender sensitive to gender responsive so that they can address the issues that women face in this space. And so plans like the UNFCCC and the Lima Work Program, help to ensure that we also have the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women that help to address structural inequalities in institutions and things like that. We also have the Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction. We have the Beijing. Sure, everybody here have probably heard of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. If you haven't, this is a good avenue to familiarize yourself with it so that you can rally around the provisions and ensure that your work is aligned with the vision of these organizations and these policies. And then we have environmental and climate finance policies as well. So policies that also determine climate finance, like how finance is disbursed, how it is provided for, things like that, Green Climate Fund, Global Environmental Facility. Of course, this list is not exhaustive, and there are also national policies that are specific to different countries. I saw some climate policies in countries like Kenya, Nepal, Mexico, and the likes. And so it's important for you to familiarize yourself with the policies that apply to your country, and to also see which of these regional policies are applicable, to your work in your country and rally around them. Yeah, so we also have frameworks, although these are not laws in codes, but they are frameworks that guide action. And just to name one of it, we have the Feminist Climate Justice Framework for Action. And, it outlines what the UN Women is doing to ensure that as we are transitioning, because there have been talks about, how do women ensure that they're not left behind? How do we ensure that women are not left behind in the transition? How do we ensure that, the workforce are adequately represented by women and things like that? Because we all know how important women are to the advancement of economies and the current state that we are in right now. We are still quite a distance from achieving that level of productivity, right? And like I said earlier, policies create mandates. They enable you to act and to keep stakeholders accountable. But then beyond just having these policies, there is the need for collaboration, which I would emphasize as I go on, and action, right? So collaborating with different stakeholders across sectors, sometimes, especially for organizations that are just starting out, but have the passion, have the capacity to do the work, may not have the ability to access funding because of the because of lack of track record, right? And so collaborating with more established organizations or forming a consortium can be a good way to access, such finances available to organizations or women-led groups in the green sector. So collaboration is just one way, and partnership is very, very important. And understanding the right people to partner with is also as important as collaborating, right? So yes, looking at the statistics in the green sector, we know how underrepresented women are and why this is
Okay, so I think we might have lost Funmilayo. So is it just me? Can everyone hear her?
I cannot hear her from my end. I was actually going to even mention that, is it my network or something? I was still able to see her screen, but I can't hear her.
Okay, I'm back now. My network
Okay,
kicked me out. Just 1 minute. Can you confirm that you can see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Yes, so looking at the reality, just highlighting two scenarios. We see a recent survey by the International Renewable Energy Agency that talks about how underrepresented women are in renewable energy sector. And it's quite surprising because number one, there is a lot of conversation going on around transitioning to energy. A lot of conferences are happening, a lot of funds are going in, and then you wonder what is stopping women from taking advantage of these opportunities. Is it lack of awareness? Is it lack of capacity? Is it discrimination? What exactly is it? I specifically know two energy focused or green sector focused conferences that are fully funded and that are open currently. And so if you're in this space, I think you should check them out because you get to network, you get to collaborate, you get to listen to discussions that will shape the kind of programs that you do and help you to improve your programming. Just 1 minute, let me type it in the chat before I continue because I might forget. Yes, so check out Youth Energy Summit. And yeah, so just check out these two organizations on Instagram. They have conferences happening this year. And if you're a woman, and well, it's not just open to women, by the way, but women are encouraged to apply because these are the kind of spaces that you need to get into and to make networks in so that you can take advantages and increase representation in the renewable energy sector, right? So if we're talking about conversations like this is an avenue for you to act and ensure that you are in rooms where you need to be to get your voice heard. It's very important. We also see how women are not properly represented in national and global negotiating bodies. 30% is a very small number compared to how many women we are, so it's very, very important. And why is it important to take action? We see or we know or we have witnessed how climate change, for instance, affects a lot of women. Women and girls are more prone to violence, more prone to discrimination. And for instance, not having access to quality reproductive health services is just one of the many consequences of a drought, for instance. And it just helps you to think about how you press in for solutions, or how you create solutions so that you can address the long-term problems that women face. Secondly, women participation offers a unique perspective in climate change and environmental justice efforts. So because a lot of women, especially at the grassroots level, are involved in these things day in, day out, they are able to offer a perspective that you may not have thought about. And that's the reason why engaging these people as stakeholders in the design process is key, because it's not only allows your solution to be very holistic, it allows it to be long-lasting. Have you ever done a project where you thought it was needed or beneficial to the community, and then you come back maybe months later and see that they're not using it, or they have even vandalized it? And I've heard of stories where, because people don't understand the usage of a particular thing, they get to misuse it. For instance, I talking about health outreaches, I heard of a story where, a health organization gave out, I think, immunization kits to parents, and instead of using it for immunization, not increasing the capacity to know how to use a particular thing, they use it for something different, maybe putting it in the baby's mouth or eyes. And, you can imagine the adverse effects that these things would have on the baby. What should have become a benefit ended up jeopardizing the health of so many children. And so it's important that you involve the unique perspectives of women, not just as beneficiaries once again, but also as stakeholders. And it will also help you when you are implementing such projects, for these people to own it. There's a difference between running a project and ending it. It's easier for you to hand over to the people that you are creating a program for when they own it and when they are involved from the beginning. Then secondly and thirdly, human rights violations can slow efforts. So just imagine creating change on one angle, and then it's like going one step up and 2 steps backward. And so talking about human rights violations like land rights, and not dispossessing women of their lands can impede on their ability to engage in livelihood, in their livelihood, like agriculture, and this can further create environmental injustice. So looking at the connections between human rights violations and things like environmental justice or climate change can also help your solutions to be better, and ensure that women are better represented in policy, in decision making rather. Then talking about what influences the ability to influence decisions. And I mentioned 3 things here that we should be aware of. So first thing is awareness. We have knowledge, we have ability / intention. So when I talk about awareness, I am asking questions like, for the women that we're trying to ensure that they have decision-making power, are they involved, or are they aware of the policies that exist? Are they aware of such dialogues? And are they interested in participating? For instance, these opportunities that I just shared in the group, so many people may not know, but they just keep seeing posts of people sharing how they got to attend one conference where they shared tips or funding for a project in the green sector. And we know the people that actually need this funding to do the work at the grassroots. We know people that are not just about, talking, but they also do these things. So are these people aware of the policies, of the opportunities that exist, and are they interested in participating? Do they know the implications of their lack of involvement? Now, it's one thing to tell people, oh, I think education is good for you, or I think you should go to school, and then to actually explain to them what dangers exist in the long term of their lack of interest in education, for instance. And so it's not just about dropping all these policies, but then they need to be able to make a connection to how it affects their daily lives, how it affects their livelihoods, what the dangers are if they are not engaged in these discussions, right? And something that I've always thought about is that some of these women are not connected. And so we run programs online. We do a lot of, okay, so I can see someone drawing on my screen. Please check yourself so that you don't mark my screen. Okay. Yeah, so, as I was saying, I see that, oh, I've lost my flow of thought. But yes, I remember now. So as I was saying, a lot of women are not connected. And so how can we ensure that the stories of women that are off the grid, remote communities, and, contributes significantly to the movement, how can we ensure that these people are adequately represented? Who is telling their stories? How are these stories told? I know that there are a couple of organizations involved in communication, involved in representing the stories of underrepresented women, but how many of them are actually going to the remotest communities to hear the problems that these people face, collecting data that can be used to make decisions, because decisions are made based on facts, based on data, based on stories, and if these things are not adequately and are not readily available, then how can we make such decisions, and how can we ensure that we increase representation? So next, going over to knowledge, we talk about capacity. So these women that we want to bring into decision-making power, do they have the technical capacity to take advantage of the opportunities available to them? Or do they even know how to mobilize resources? I heard the first speaker talking about treating your organization as a business case and not as charity. Having the capacity to mobilize resources, get partnerships to support the work that you're doing is very important. Beyond the business side of your work, you also need to know how to engage in policy advocacy, negotiation, and public speaking, so that when you get into such rooms, you know how to articulate your thoughts and ensure that your points are adequately and efficiently communicated across. Then, talking about measurements, so I know that it's financing decisions are usually made on numbers, not just budget numbers or forecast numbers on the project you want to do, but numbers as to the impact of work that you've done. So how exactly do you measure? Are these people adequately knowledgeable or trained on how to measure carbon emissions, for instance, how to measure the contribution of their farming activities, of their environmental advocacy, environmental justice advocacy to the big picture, so that when it's time to tell the story, they're able to connect the dots and it is not vague, or it is not intangible. It's very, very important. Then moving over to ability, beyond having the awareness and the knowledge, there even needs to be frameworks for women to lead in policy spaces. And that is the reason why, conversations should also include things like creating quota systems, mandating gender parity in boards and councils. For instance, I've seen a couple of youth advisory boards here and there for the EU, for the UN, and ensuring that women are adequately represented in these spaces will mean that out of 20 people selected for this position, for instance, 10 of them must be women. And we can also have quota systems for women that are even further.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry. Please pardon me. I just kind of looked at the time right now, and I'm seeing that we have overstretched. So please, I want to request that you try to round off your session in the next maybe 3 minutes, please, so that we don't stay too long. Thank you very much.
All right. Spaces by representation, resources, capacity, and influence. And what does this look like? I listed out some things that we can do to simplify it for us. And building on some of the things that I've said before, prioritizing capacity building and awareness at the grassroots level. So if you host capacity building sessions, there is the need to expand your curriculum to address critical skills gap that women need to fill, to take advantage of opportunities, take advantage of spaces, and advocate for the right things. Establishing mechanisms for accountability, ensuring proper representation through community pre-consultative sessions. So needs assessments, focal group discussions, like having an oversight body, even having like a community lead, for instance, that is a woman. Recently I had a conversation with somebody, and she was talking about how in Nigeria, most of the ballets, a ballet is like a community chief, for instance. Most of the ballets are men. In fact, not just most of them, all, and there's only been one application for a female ballet, which was quite alarming, to say the least. And if we are saying that we want to involve women in these spaces and ensure that they're adequately represented, their perspectives are taken into consideration, then we can start from places like this. Then allyship and collaboration. I mentioned this earlier briefly, but the need to form alliances with feminist groups, environmental justice movements, and other movements instrumental to work. I think a lot of organizations need to move away from having the do-it-all mentality, and collaborate with people that can help them to amplify their work. It's very important to form allyships and to collaborate for greater impact. Then creating gender focal points with real influence. That is also very important, so that you are not just having a gender focal point just for the headlines, but it's actually functional. And then tipping the scale to promote representation of women in the workforce. That is very important as well. And last but not the least, addressing the impact of unpaid care work. This can significantly reduce the time commitment of women that we need in this workforce. So how do we ensure that women can balance responsibility so that it does not weigh on their time and does not weigh on their ability to, enter into the own sector and do things that they need to do to take advantage of opportunities. So that brings me to the end of my session. Thank you, and I'm going to hand over now to Emily.
Thank you so much, Miss Fumi, for your presentation. And I especially like the fact that you're able to use a lot of personal experiences to reiterate the points that you communicated. Thank you so much. So, guys, we're going to quickly do a networking session right now. We're going to have a very quick networking session. So, we're going to have a breakout. We're going to have breakout rooms. Everybody will be assigned into breakout rooms where for about 2 to 3 minutes, we'll just get to network, get to know each other, and move on to the next thing. So please, you're going to see a pop-up notification on your screen right now inviting you to join breakout room. Please concede to it and let's get this done.
Recording in progress.
All right, guys, welcome back to the main session. Okay, yes, more people are joining us. I hope you had a lovely time connecting with the members of your breakout room. I got to meet two amazing people. I got to meet Kevin, and I also got to meet Pumi. She's a journalist from Swaziland. So we've officially gotten to the end of this webinar. I want to especially thank every single person who stayed till the very end of this session. Thank you so much for being with us from the beginning to the very end. And I also want to believe that, you have also had like a very, very wonderful time. I personally have learned a lot from all the speakers, and we want to see you implement the things that you have learned today, in your organizations. We want to see you implement these things and actually practicalize them and get wonderful solutions, wonderful results. So I'm going to hand over to Precious. She's going to be giving the closing remark where, we're sharing our survey and then talking about our upcoming webinar and then details to join our community. Thank you so much, everyone. My name remains Ayomide Nejo, your host for this webinar. Precious, over to you.
All right, yes. So thank you so much, everyone. And yes, we apologize again for the little hike in time. And thank you so much for your patience, everyone that has stayed so far. I hope that we have been able to gain a bit. Because of time, we had to cancel out a bit also things we wanted to do. But I hope that with our three insightful sessions so far with our incredible speakers, Natania, Sharon, and Funmilayo, that we have had a very, very insightful time. So thank you so much for your patience. So just about now, we just have three quick announcements to make. So the first one is we have post-webinar surveys that help us to evaluate the impact of these webinars on you. So please, can you kindly post the link to the survey in the chat box right now? So please kindly fill this survey as soon as you see it. It's very short, it's not going to take you up to a minute. We just want to evaluate how impactful the webinar was, because these are the things that help us to improve our subsequent webinars. So we fully develop our webinars in a way that is user-oriented. It's we try to ensure that it is the persons that we are trying to reach that actually inform what decisions we make during this webinar. So kindly fill the post-webinar survey. We really need you to fill it. Please fill it as soon as the link is dropped. Please click and fill. It's not going to take you up to a minute. We have designed it that way. Then secondly, we would have, this is the Bingo webinar series. So we have these webinars coming up every month. So very soon we're going to bring up the full announcement, flyers, everything for the next webinar. And kindly also share with your network and anticipate. And finally, yes, someone asked earlier that do we have a group for persons in the green growth sector, in the impact space generally to join? Yes, we have a WhatsApp community, and we also have what we call the Green Growth DG Hub app. So, but first of all, what I'm going to need you to do is to just join our WhatsApp community. When you join, the main details that you need to know about every other thing we do here at Middle Africa, as well as the projects that we are speaking about so far, and then resources that we need, and of course, connections with persons of like minds. We also do that on the WhatsApp community. So please kindly join the WhatsApp community. So you can also help me to drop the link on the chat in the chat box. So you can click the link and we join from there. So I think, just click the link. Yes, the WhatsApp link has been sent. So just click the link. And then someone asked, can we take a group picture? Definitely, we are going to do that just now. So please click the link to join the WhatsApp group. Click the link to fill the survey form. Or maybe click the link to join the WhatsApp group. The survey form will be sent to the WhatsApp as well. So just click the link to join the WhatsApp group and we'll pick it up from there. And so let's quickly have a group photo so that we can call it an evening. And thank you so much once again to everyone for staying.
Thank you guys for joining.
for staying so
Put
far.
on your
So,
cameras and put on bright smiles. Let's take a picture.
yes, I can see our cameras coming on. Yes, we need more. Yes. Yes.
And bright
yes.
smiles too.
All right. And yes, we have gotten that. So yes, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a lovely week. For those of us who celebrate Easter, have a lovely Easter celebration as well. So yes, thank you, and see you next month. Bye.
See you all next month. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.